Hey guys, welcome to Canoe of the North. Today I want to talk to you about finding your perfect canoe. So spring is finally here guys, and it's just about that time where we can put the canoes in the water. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are itching to get out there, and there's also a lot of people that are really doing a ton of research on trying to find what canoe would best suit them, and there is a pile of options out there. So today I just wanted to quickly go over some of the different options you might want to look for before you buy your first canoe, or maybe it's your second or third or 10th canoe. But yeah, let's talk about some different things to do with canoes. So the first thing you're going to want to think about when you're buying a canoe is, what are you really going to use it for? The majority of your paddling, what is it? Are you heading to Algonquin for 3-day long weekend trips? Are you heading down the Yukon River for a week or 2 weeks? Are you running extreme whitewater in Alaska? That's what you're going to have to decide. What do you normally use your boat for? And I know that sounds really simple, but don't necessarily buy a canoe for your dream trip. Buy a canoe for what you normally do with it. So once you've decided what type of paddling what your primary focus of paddling is going to be, whether that be lakes or river, then you can start to figure out, what type of material am I going to be looking at? And let's go through some of the materials. So the first material we're going to talk about is, this is a T-Formex canoe, which is also known as Royal X. A T-Formex is just the newer version that's designed by Skiff Canoes, and it's basically your bomb-proof stuff. If you're gonna do whitewater, if you need a canoe that you can drag across the tundra, I would say that Royal X is probably your best choice. There are other options out there. I know that there's some manufacturers that have come out with Negra canoes, and Negra is a super resilient, I think it's a polypropylene rope that they have blended together with basalt, and it's super durable. But yeah, the primary go-to whitewater canoe is going to be your Royal X or T-Formex. So we've talked about your plastics, or your ABS, your Royal X, T-Formex boats, and as I said, they're going to be almost all of your true whitewater boats, and the main benefits of them is it's just their durability. But among their durability, the plastic is also, it's slippery, so it does slide over rocks. And if you do hit a rock, a submerged rock, or maybe it's even above water, your canoe, it'll absorb some of that impact. That's kind of a nice thing about Royal X or T-Formex. It also has inherent buoyancy in it, so you'll see in these canoes. So this is a Kevlar canoe, but they've got built-in or glued-in flotation tanks at the bow and stern, whereas these canoes, they don't have that. Royal X canoes don't have that. You can obviously glue in airbags or glue in ropes for airbags, but they don't need flotation in order to float, or they don't need built-in flotation in order to float. So the next type of canoe we're going to talk about, guys, are your fabric canoes. So so this is a Souris River Quatico. It's an 18.5-foot canoe, and it is made of Kevlar, which you probably know for bulletproof vests, right? That's kind of where Kevlar is known. And so along with Kevlar, you've got carbon fiber, fiberglass, and as I talked about a little bit earlier, the Negra Fabric as well. So these boats, you'll see a lot of these boats around, and they are, generally speaking, they're lightweight. You know, you're talking, I mean, some of them are down to the, anywhere between, say, 25 pounds to, this is probably on the heavier side. It's about 55 pounds, and I've seen some Negra canoes that they're designed for whitewater. So let's talk a little bit now, guys, about your lighter weight tripping canoes. So this is a Souris River Quatico. It's an 18.5-foot canoe, and it is entirely made up. Actually, I shouldn't say that. It is mostly made up of Kevlar fabric. Obviously Kevlar, from bulletproof vests. That's where Kevlar That's why everyone kind of knows Kevlar. And Kevlar is a very durable material. It's been around for quite a long time, and canoe manufacturers have used it for quite a long time, and that's because it is very durable. The next one we'll talk about is carbon fiber. So carbon fiber, again, it's a super popular fabric. It is ultra lightweight. Okay, it is super, like I've got carbon fiber paddles that weigh almost nothing, and they're very strong. But carbon fiber, you're probably going to get your lightest weight canoes from it, but they're going to be a little bit more brittle. So if you're, almost all racing canoes you're going to see, they're all made up of carbon fiber. But yeah, tripping canoes, you might see a layer of carbon fiber on their canoes, but you don't generally see a canoe that's entirely made up of carbon fiber, just because it is a little bit more brittle. Not to say that it's not durable, it's just it is a little bit more brittle. And then finally, guys, we'll just touch on a Negra fabric. So the Negra, it's a new fabric, and it's very durable. You're starting to see some whitewater boats come out with a Negra fabric. So it's kind of interesting. It's a little bit lighter than your Royal X or your T4MX canoes, and they say that it's just as durable. I have not tested a whitewater version of a Negra boat. I have paddled a Negra canoes before, and yeah, nothing to complain about for sure. But yeah, those are your choices. I'd say a Negra is probably your toughest. Then you've got Kevlar, and then you've got carbon fiber. So your Royal X and your T4MX boats, guys, they come in basically giant sheets, and the sheets are heated up, I believe, and then they're molded into shape, as opposed to your Kevlar, your Negra, your carbon fiber boats, which are generally multiple, like they come in, it's almost like fabric sheets, and they roll the sheets out, they cut the sheets to length, they trim the edges, and it's glue that holds the boat together. So Royal X it's like plastic on either side with almost like a foam in the middle, and then you've got your other types of canoes, your Kevlar, as I said, and your carbon fiber, which come in sheets, and it's all glue, whether it be vinyl ester or epoxy resin that holds the canoes together. Another type of canoe, guys, that I totally forgot to talk about is your fiberglass canoes, which I don't think that there's a whole lot of companies anymore that are even making them, but I know that there's still lots of them around, especially you go up to cottage country. They're kind of your beat around canoes. They're relatively tough, but they're heavy, and I don't think I'd bring one on, I don't think I'd really bring one on any trip. But if that's what you've got to paddle, then hey, get out there, go paddle it. So next on the list, guys, we're going to talk about how weight and durability kind of correspond to one another. So as I mentioned earlier, the Kevlar canoe I have, it weighs about 55 pounds, I believe, 54 pounds maybe, and it is made up of 5 layers of Kevlar. And then there's also reinforced, and I think that when I talked to Stewart River, I think they said there was something like maybe 11 layers or 13 layers in some spots where they want to reinforce. And so yeah, so that's where you get 55 pounds of weight for a 18.5 foot boat, which is lightweight for that size of a boat. Now you take this canoe, which is the Esquif Prospector. As I said, it's 17 feet long, and it weighs about 75 pounds. And so that's, you know, it's 20 pounds more than that boat. I will tell you that this canoe here is much more enjoyable to portage, but this canoe here is definitely tougher. There is a direct link between durability and weight in almost every circumstance. So you'll see some companies, they've got let's say a 16-foot canoe that weighs 28 pounds. Well, that's probably true, but the only way they can get to that weight, if they're using Kevlar or carbon fiber or whatever, is to eliminate sheets of fabric, right? That's the ultimate way to drop weight, is just to eliminate fabric, right? I think for every layer of Kevlar on this canoe here, the 18.5 footer, it weighs about 5 pounds. So if you wanted to knock the weight down 5 pounds, it's pretty easy just to layer, just to leave one layer out, or maybe you leave 2 layers out. But is that going to affect the durability of your canoe? I would say absolutely. So if you can talk to the boat manufacturer and find out how many layers of fabric do you guys use? Do you guys use whole pieces, or do you guys use offcuts and just kind of patch it all together? That's another thing that some companies do, because it's cheaper to do that. So I really encourage everyone to get out there, talk to manufacturers if you can, email them, but get an actual number. How many layers are you guys using? Where's the reinforcements? What type of ribs are you guys using? Are you guys using a foam core? Find out how durable that canoe is. Another thing I didn't talk about in regards to the weight, guys, was you see how this is it's got a clear finish. You can actually see the cloth, and I think those black dots, that's just kind of, that's decoration, but that's actually part of the fabric. But is gel coating, and a lot of companies, they put gel coats on their boats, and as much as I think they look pretty, like, you know, you can kind of get some cool designs. You can have, you know, a lot of boats, they have like a one color where it's in the water, and then they've got another color on the side of the boat. Like, it looks nice, and it's kind of funky or whatever, but I say it's just a waste of weight. So let's say that paint job weighs 5 pounds. Would you rather have an extra layer of fabric on your canoe for added durability, or a little bit of paint that's going to chip away? And every time I would say I'd rather have another layer of fabric. So another way to look at it, guys, is if you had a canoe and you could save 5 pounds on a portage trail by leaving a can of paint at home, you probably would leave that can of paint at home and just carry the naked canoe, right? So anyways, maybe that helps. Okay, next on the list of things to talk about, guys, is the bottom of your canoe. So let's talk about the shapes of the canoes. So you have your flat bottom canoes, which are kind of the ultimate in primary stability. You've got your shallow arch canoes that are kind of an in-between. They've got good, you know, good primary and secondary stability, but they're not the best at either. And then you've got your round bottom canoes, which are going to be really tippy but have really high secondary stability. So before I show you what the bottom of my 2 canoes here look like, let's just talk a little bit more about flat bottom, shallow arch, and round bottom canoes. If you're new at canoeing, I think the most important thing is to actually feel comfortable in the canoe that you're paddling. And for a lot of people, that really tippy feeling, it can be kind of scary, right? Like, especially if you are doing a backcountry trip in a canoe. Like, you don't want to fall into the water, right? If you're doing an open water crossing, you don't want to feel like you're gonna fall into the water all the time, right? So if you are new, I would highly suggest that you look for a canoe that has a flat-ish bottom. It doesn't have to be perfectly flat. Like, there's different, you know, there's a lot of shallow arch hulls they're more flat almost, I would say, than they are shallow arch. But don't go for that super performance canoe that people say you can go through crazy choppy water because of the round bottom. Like, for most people that are getting into canoeing, you're going to want a lot of initial stability to build your comfort level, and secondary stability. So secondary stability is like, how far can that canoe lean over before it tips into the water? That's really what secondary stability is. Most of the time, guys, if you're getting into canoeing, especially if you're on lake paddling, like, if you are out on the water when secondary stability is the biggest concern, then you should not be on the water. So I just thought I'd touch on that for 1 sec, guys. Just try and find a stable boat, because they are out there. You might have to paddle 10 boats before you find one that's stable, but they are out there. Everyone's preconceived notion about canoes is that they're super tippy, but I'll tell you, that's not the case. Okay, so let's show you the bottom of the boats. So this is the Suez River, and it is a true flat bottom boat, and it is very flat. So you can see right there, it's got lots of surface area that's going to be touching the water when the canoe is in the water. Let's show you the skiff Prospector. Now, they say the hull shape on this boat is round, and it's more round than the Seward River, but it's still a very stable boat, guys. I do a ton of fishing in my canoes, so one of the big things I look for is primary stability, and I've also got 2 dogs that come along with me, so primary stability to me is very important. And yeah, both these boats have loads of stability. Okay, next on the list, guys, is the size of your canoe. So let's talk about sizing. I would say that most people that are going to use a boat solo, you know, you're probably looking at something, say, from 14 to 16 feet. And if you're going to go tandem, I would say something from 16 to 18 feet. And it really is just, it's personal preference. It's how long you're going to go away for, how much gear you bring. Maybe you have dogs, maybe you have kids. But when you're going to look at canoes, bring what you're going to bring with you while you go for a test paddle, or even if you can just look at it on a showroom floor. Like, maybe bring 2 canoe paddles, or not canoe paddles, canoe barrels, guys. Bring a couple of canoe barrels, a couple backpacks, throw them in the boat. Bring your dog, get your dog to jump in the canoe and see what it looks like. If it feels too small, maybe it is. Maybe size up, go from the 17 to the 18, or from the 15 to the 16. But there really is no such thing as a perfect, there's no such thing as a perfect canoe, okay? And as far as sizing goes, you're gonna hear a bunch of different things. But so this canoe is 18.5 feet long. I can paddle that by myself. It's maybe not the most fun, it's not designed for solo paddling, but I can do it. This canoe here, the 17-footer, same thing. It's a great tandem boat, can easily be paddled by 2 people with lots of volume. It's a quite a high volume boat. And I can sit in this seat, right? I can sit in the bow seat facing backwards, and I can solo paddle this, no problem. So don't let somebody say, oh, if you're gonna paddle a solo boat, you know, it's got to be 15 feet. It doesn't. It's got to be whatever you want it to be, right? I go paddling solo with my 2 dogs and go fishing. This boat works for that. That's totally fine for me. Maybe people think that a 17-foot boat is too big. Like, it's not too big. So you pick the boat that you want to paddle. Another thing I thought I'd say, guys, on boat size is just that the best paddler I think that ever lived is Bill Mason. And I believe that he, even when he was solo paddling, I don't think he paddled anything under 16 feet. So just another thing, guys. Maybe you can only have 1 canoe and you want it to be paddled by, maybe you want to go out with your girlfriend or wife or friends or whatever, and go paddling, and you want to have it as a tandem canoe, but then the odd time you want to go out solo canoe. Well, like, pick a boat that's going to work for that. Like, don't think that a 16-foot canoe you can't paddle by yourself, because that's just not true. You know, 16-17-foot canoe, I think they're probably the most versatile canoes. They can be paddled by 2 people, 1 person, you know, volume for a long enough trip that most people are going to go on, not too heavy to portage. So that's just a couple of things to think about, guys. Next on the list, guys, is symmetrical versus asymmetrical canoes. So both of these 2 canoes I have here, they are both symmetrical canoes, meaning that if you turn them around, they're the exact same bow and stern. Okay, they are identical. And the advantage to a symmetrical canoe is that if you want to paddle it, so this would traditionally be the stern paddler here. This would be your bow paddler. But if you want to paddle this boat by yourself, it's pretty easy to sit in that seat right there, fill up this area, and solo paddle this boat, which just brings you a little bit closer to the center of the canoe, which just makes it easier to paddle by yourself. Now, an asymmetrical canoe, the benefit you're going to get from that is it's just a slight, it's a more efficient design in the water. So if it's an asymmetrical canoe and it's meant to be paddled tandem, you're not going to flip that canoe and paddle it backwards, but it's going to be faster paddled tandem, because it's just, as I said, it's just a more efficient design. So it depends what you're after. Next on the list, guys, is rocker. So rocker is the amount that the boat kind of sweeps up from the center line of the boat to, so if you drew a line from here and went over there, it's that measurement there, that's the rocker. Okay, so on this canoe right here, it's got 3.5 inches of rocker, bow and stern. As I said, it's a symmetrical canoe, right? On that canoe, you can see it doesn't really come off the ground there, and it doesn't really come off the ground over here. So that it doesn't have a whole lot of rocker. I think say it's got 2 inches of rocker, but it doesn't really even seem like that. It's minimal rocker on that boat. And let's talk about rocker. So if you have a flat rockered boat or a minimal rockered boat, like the 2 inches, it's going to track much better, which means it's going to be easier to keep it in a straight line, which is great. If you're going flat water paddling, that maybe is what you're after. If you want a boat that turns easier, you're going to want a canoe that has more rocker. So this Prospector design, as I said, 3.5 inches of rocker. I think it's perfect for me. Like I love it. I love that amount of rocker because it gives me flexibility. I have paddled boats that have 4.5 inches of rocker, and that's great for whitewater, but I don't necessarily know if I'd want to take that on a long flat water trip. But there you go, that's rocker. So we're going to talk a little bit about the fullness of a canoe, which is basically the fullness of a canoe. Kind of it's more or less, you know, your canoe starts out wide and it kind of tapers in here, right? And a fuller canoe kind of has like the bow and the stern are basically bulkier, and it helps it ride over waves. And you can actually see this one's kind of got a bit of an upswept bow and stern too, right? Which again helps with being a little bit more seaworthy when you are going through choppy conditions, or you're paddling down a river and there is some actual whitewater. And this one, it's not super full, but it's fairly full. So if you compared, this is a Prospector, if you compared this to the Skiff Canyon, say, the Canyon has it's got a fairly blunt end, and it's a very full canoe, which is, again, it's great for whitewater, great for seaworthiness, you know, maybe not the best for your speed. This canoe here, it's got kind of finer entry. It's not like a Sewers River. They say it's a full canoe, very full, and it is for a lightweight canoe. It's fairly full, but you know, I've taken this on the Great Lakes in Ontario. We paddled around Lake Huron last summer, and big water, I don't know. We actually ended up buying in a skiff Miramichi, which is a 20-foot boat, which is just an absolute tank on the water. But yeah, so you can just see finer entry line. Maybe it's going to be a little bit faster in the water, but it's not going to ride over the waves quite as nicely as, say, a boat like that would. But it'll track better, and it'll be a touch faster. Just another thing on your cargo and your canoes, guys, I really like to have barrels with me. I always go tripping with you know, 1 or 2 barrels normally, at least. And so I always make sure that this area here where I'm going to put my cargo is actually wide enough to fit barrels side by side or lengthwise or whatever. But I want to be able to make sure that I can get barrels in, because some boats you just can't get the barrels in, and for me that's important. If you're not going tripping with barrels, well, then it doesn't really matter, and the width of the boat is up to you. But I always try and find canoes that have you know, 35-36 inches across. That works for me. So now we're going to talk about the sides of the hull, sides of your canoe. So you have straight sides, flared sides, and tumble home, and I'm going to show you what I've got here. But first we'll just touch on why you would pick any of them. Tumble home is kind of where your boat goes in. It kind of goes in at the center, and maybe I'll show it here. So this canoe, it's got a slight tumble home, I would say. Like, it's not really, but most of them are way more dramatic. But that's going to help it put you in an easier paddling position, but maybe it increases the chances that waves might come over the side of your boat, right? So that'd be the pro and the con there. This canoe here, I would say this is basically a straight. You can see it basically just goes straight up and down there, which is kind of kind of an in-between, right? It's when you compare it to flared hull, which flared is obviously gonna flare out, right? Which is gonna keep water out, but maybe make it a little bit more awkward to paddle. So there's that. So to sum this all up, there really is no perfect canoe. Everything is a compromise, right? Weight, durability, cargo capacity, length, you know, hull design, everything is a compromise, right? So you're just looking for what best suits you, but there really is no perfect canoe. I really advise you guys, if you're looking to buy a canoe or even just to rent a canoe, like, talk to the manufacturers, find out how they build them, find out their makeup, how many layers they use, talk about the weight, get a picture of the bottom of a canoe. You can tell a lot on the canoe design just by a picture of the hull. A hull profile will tell you a lot about that canoe. And lastly, get out and paddle. Try as many canoes as you can. Like, I mean, I've paddled quite a few canoes, not nearly as many as a lot of people have out there, but yeah, I'm always surprised how little differences in a canoe. Maybe half an inch of rocker can make a fairly dramatic difference on how that boat paddles. So get out there, have fun. Thanks for watching, and as always, please like, please subscribe, and if you guys have any questions about anything I've talked about, or maybe I've made some mistakes, feel free to correct me in the comments section. So thanks very much, guys. Play safe.